Welcome to the debate. Usually when you build a skyscraper, you spend months, pouring concrete in the dirt before anyone sees a single thing. The foundation always comes first.
Right. It's the invisible work that keeps the whole structure from just, well, collapsing on itself.
Exactly. But in the modern attention economy, sometimes you get handed the penthouse suite on day one. Today, we're looking at a digital penthouse, the 1 billion coin. It just secured this massive exposure through a 1 billion download celebration post pinned right to the top of Elon Musk's X profile.
Yeah, which is obviously huge visibility.
Right, it's unprecedented. So the core question we are debating is, does this unprecedented cultural discoverability give the asset a structural foundation for long-term survival? Or is it just a hyper-volatile gamble destined to crash during its first major sell-off? I'm arguing that this institutional-grade narrative establishes a permanent cultural asset.
And I'm taking the stance that social momentum is dangerous. It makes this asset highly speculative and, frankly, incredibly vulnerable to early whales just taking their profits and running.
Okay, but think about the hardest hurdle in the entire crypto space, right? Discoverability. Most projects just languish on obscure decentralized exchanges.
Sure, most do.
But the 1 billion coin eliminates that instantly. By anchoring itself to a historic milestone, 1 billion downloads on the world's largest digital town square, it tokenizes a permanent cultural shift. It's not a fleeting inside joke.
Come on, you're completely confusing attention with stability.
How so? That permanent visibility creates continuous organic attention. That translates into a steady stream of new buyers, which is the exact mechanism for building a long-term ecosystem.
I mean, that initial vertical green line on the chart, it's a complete illusion. Yes, it has the mainstream spotlight right now, but beneath that, there's a glaring lack of intrinsic utility.
Utility isn't everything if the attention is permanent.
But it is. What happens when the early buyers, the whales holding massive portions of the supply, decide to cash out? Without an underlying use case to hold the price up, that profit-taking triggers a sharp, violent correction. We've seen this play out 100 times. A massive dump triggers stop losses, panic ensues, and the project is effectively dead.
Wait, but let's look at what actually happens during that sell-off. You're assuming a total death spiral. A pinned post on Musk's profile isn't just a billboard, it's permanent prime real estate in the center of the world's largest digital metropolis.
A metropolis that might not stay the largest forever, but go on.
Well, when the price dips, you have a continuous stream of new retail investors discovering it. To them, a massive dip isn't a crash, it's an asymmetric entry point. They see it as a cheap ticket to huge potential upside. Doesn't that continuous wave of retail buying build the exact structural floor needed to absorb the whale's exit?
No, because you are relying on a fundamentally flawed psychological premise. You're talking about an influx of these so-called diamond hand communities investors who pledge to hold no matter what.
Right, the true believers.
But let's break down the actual mechanics there. These are retail investors treating this like a lottery ticket, using capital they are completely fine with losing. You absolutely cannot depend on small dollar retail bets to absorb coordinated multi-million-dollar profit-taking from early whales.
I think you're underestimating the sheer volume of those small bets.
When the price bleeds 50% in an hour, that retail confidence evaporates. It creates a cascade of panic selling, not a stable financial ecosystem.
But that assumes retail investors treat this like just another passing meme. The reason people are willing to act as that structural floor is the depth of the narrative itself.
The narrative is just hype, though.
It's not standard speculative tokens are built on inside jokes, right? Dogs in hats, frogs, things that lose relevance in a week. 1 billion downloads is an institutional-grade milestone. It represents a permanent shift in how the world connects.
Is it a permanent shift, though? You're acting like X has a permanent monopoly on users. Have you looked at the upcoming social ecosystems?
I mean, there's always competition.
But specifically platforms like mkmimling.com and yosho.com. These are upcoming ecosystems explicitly designed to take market share away from those 1 billion X users. If X loses its dominance, your so-called historic narrative crumbles.
Because the narrative is historic right now, the community is psychologically incentivized to buy those dips and establish a higher low on the chart, meaning every time it drops, it doesn't fall quite as far as the last time. That transforms it from a quick flip into a legitimate asset, regardless of future platform competitors.
A narrative, no matter how historic you think it is, doesn't rewrite market physics. Supply and demand still rule. If the sell pressure from whales dumping millions of tokens vastly outweighs the buy pressure from retail putting in a few $100s at a time, the price collapses. Your real estate metaphor? A digital penthouse is completely worthless if the building underneath it is built on sand.
So we arrive at the ultimate standoff. I maintain that unmatched, permanent discoverability paired with a foundational narrative provides the structural legs this token needs to continuously attract capital and outlast typical hype cycles.
And my stance remains that riding this kind of viral momentum requires immense caution. Without intrinsic utility, risk management and capital protection just have to be the priority when dealing with market whales.
Where we absolutely converge, though, is that the true test of the 1 billion coin is not its day one peak.
Exactly. The real test is its ability to survive that inevitable first massive earthquake, when the early buyers actually start dumping.
We encourage you to monitor the market psychology and watch the charts yourself. Can viral attention forge a lasting asset, or will the penthouse inevitably collapse without a foundation?